Fascism. Can't happen here. Can't it though? Every day, we as Americans pledge our allegiance to all sorts of different power structures. We pledge allegiance to churches, pledge allegiance to our state, we pledge allegiance to our favorite basketball team or our favorite football team. We pledge allegiance to our workplace. Couldn't it be that some of these power structures that we pledge our allegiance to are fascist? Think about your government. There's your municipal government, your state government, your federal government. Each one of these creates laws that you have to submit to, but each of these is also democratically run. You can participate in them in a meaningful way where you get your voice heard. Laws that they create are meant to be followed equally by everyone. Anybody can be elected to a position of power if they can just convince enough of the population that they're qualified to lead. Now, think about your workplace. Is that democratically run? Do you get to vote for your CEO? Do you get a say in how compensation for labor is distributed? You work at most businesses. No, you don't. You live in a democratically run country, but you work at a fascist institution. You willingly submit to the rule of a fascist power structure in your workplace. I think it's important to understand that corporate power structures are not unlike states. While they do exist within the United States government, or at least within the confines of the laws of the United States government, they don't need the United States government at all. In fact, the less that the United States government has laws and regulations, and the freer they are to just do whatever they want, they can hire a private army like Blackwater. They can become a stateless, global, totalitarian empire, completely unlimited by the idea of territory. By willingly complying to the rules and regulations of the company you work for, you're pledging allegiance to it. I know at my place of work, the factory owner has talked to us about being good corporate citizens. What? Yeah, corporate citizens. Not talking about corporations as citizens, but us as workers as being citizens of a corporation. Yeah, that's right. Globalized capitalism is a stateless totalitarian empire. So what is fascism? Imagine it as being like a pack of wolves. All the wolves participate equally in the hunt. However, after the kill takes place, the alpha eats first. After the alpha, those in the inner circle who guarded the kill while the alpha ate, they get to eat next. So the alpha and those in his innermost circle, they get to eat all the most nutritious and easily digestible parts of the animal, often several times over, vomiting over and over in the process, taking way more than they can possibly eat. After they've decided they've vomited all over themselves enough, then they let the lower caste of wolves come along and pick the bones clean. By keeping the lower caste of wolves fed, the alpha is able to maintain their loyalty. But by just barely feeding them, he's also able to keep them weaker than himself, so he's able to defeat them should they ever try to challenge him. In a human context, as you rise up through the ranks of a fascist power structure, you gain ever greater access, and by pitting those who are trying to rise up through the fascist power structure against each other, get them to diffuse attention away from the power structure and maintain loyalty. A good totalitarian rewards those who guard the kill by giving them greater access to it. Occasionally selecting a member of the lower caste to become part of the inner circle creates a stark promise for all those within the lower caste of someday being able to be a member of that inner circle. And this stark promise keeps all those in the lower caste loyal. Now let's look at your place of work. Do you see any similarities? By keeping the lower caste of society on starvation wages, just barely able to eat, but unable to pay medical bills or rent, you create a situation where a large number of people depend on a fascist power structure for their very survival. These people don't have the capital to start their own business, to own the means of production. They don't have the means to grow their own food. So this should be clear now. We live in a democratically run country, but we pledge allegiance to fascist power structures in our place of work. These fascist power structures exist within the confines of a democratically run society. We could make our workplaces more equitable. Like, we could change the way that power is distributed in our society, but 60% of us don't even bother to vote in elections. And so the two corporate parties who pit us against each other, they get to rule in favor of the fascist power structure. It is our lack of active participation in the democratic process in a meaningful way that has allowed these fascist power structures to increase their hold over the way that our democratically run government is operated. So back to your place of work. Let's say that you work at a company that regularly hires everybody as a seasonal hire because of our lack of meaningful participation in our democratic government. Labor laws have become increasingly more lax. So legally, these corporations are able to work new employees for up to a year at a time, and they can do this without having to pay them a dime in compensation outside of their low starting wage. No health insurance, no benefits. This is increasingly becoming standard industry practice. And this is also just another instance of how the more free the market is, the less free we as human beings actually are. By artificially limiting the number of employment opportunities at your workplace, a company can give seasonal employees a false hope that someday they will be able to be in the inner circle. Maybe 4 or 5 of the 30 or so of them will be selected. Those who don't get it that year will be asked to come back again next year, and in the intervening time will be replaced with another slew of part-time seasonal employees who are just struggling to make ends meet. And even though the lowest compensated workers produce the material that creates the bulk of profits, they, because of this power structure, are willing to comply with a fascist power structure. So why are we willing to put up with this sort of treatment? People gotta eat, that's why. Unless you're already wealthy and have a sizable amount in saving, you have the means to produce your own food or to invest your capital in means of production. If you don't submit to fascism in the workplace, you'll starve. If you do submit to corporate fascism, you'll also be on the verge of losing everything, getting a meager wage. You'll be able to eat. It's not really much of a choice, is it? But here's the rub. If we all decided, well, I'd rather starve than be a slave, then the entire fascist power structure falls apart. Fascist power structures, they don't require punishment. They don't require forced compliance as much as they require willingness on the part of those who are the lowest caste of society to comply with it. Without the supposedly expendable and powerless caste of society willingly submitting, the whole thing falls apart. The lowest caste of society, they're the ones who are the gears in the machine. They do all of the work. They provide all the labor in hopes that one day they too will gain access to the kill. And they're willing to do this labor because they're fed table scraps by those who guard the kill. And it doesn't have to be this way. We can have democracy in the workplace. It could be achieved a number of ways. You can start a business that is a cooperative. Choose to work for a business that is a cooperative. You can also organize your workplace by joining a union. And you can also participate in the democratic process in a meaningful way, either by running for office yourself on a reform platform, or by voting for and organizing for and working for candidates who are running on a reform platform. Remember this, though. There are more of us than there are of them. We're not as weak as they lead us to believe. Refuse to submit. This is the Punk Patriot, to life, liberty, and pursuit of a less fucked up government.